Only true dark chosen ones understand the power of God's shadow tests. There's a reason your life has never felt ordinary. A reason the storms came harder for you, the silence cut deeper, and the betrayals shattered things in you that most people never even knew could be broken. You've looked around and seen others glide through life while you've had to crawl through glass just to breathe. And maybe you've asked, quietly, why me? Maybe you've prayed and heard nothing. Maybe you've screamed into a sky that never responded. But here's the truth you're finally ready to hear. Those weren't signs that you were forgotten. They were signs that you were being chosen and tested, because only true dark chosen ones are trusted by God to endure His most brutal, sacred training ground, the shadow tests. These tests aren't written about in spiritual textbooks. They aren't discussed in self-help seminars, because they don't sell well. They're not easy. They don't comfort. They dismantle. They are the hidden curriculum of souls handpicked by God for something greater than comfort or approval. You see, the dark chosen ones are not defined by darkness in the way most people misunderstand it. You're not evil. You're not corrupt. You are forged in the places others avoid. You are baptized not in water but in fire. God doesn't test you to punish you. He tests you to reveal to you what cannot be destroyed.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first shadow test is isolation. True isolation. Not just being alone, but being misunderstood in your aloneness. You'll speak truth and be mocked. You'll offer loyalty and be abandoned. The people you thought would stand beside you will vanish, and the ones who smile will carry knives. This isn't because you are cursed. It's because you are being stripped. God removes the voices so you can finally hear your own. The pain of that silence is the sound of the mask shattering. He wants to know, will you still walk forward when no one is clapping? Will you trust your inner compass when the entire world is pointing in the opposite direction? The second shadow test is temptation. Not just sexual or material temptation, but identity temptation. You'll be offered roles, images, masks that would make your life easier if you just agreed to wear them. Pretend to be more light. Numb your depth. Simplify your power. And it will feel good, safe, even for a while. But your soul will start to decay. Because true dark chosen ones weren't made to perform. You were made to embody. And when you resist that false identity, when you choose to walk your truth even when it isolates you, that's when the test becomes a weapon in your hand. The third test is betrayal. Deep, soul-breaking betrayal. And not from enemies. From those you loved, trusted, shared your sacred with. And when they betray you, it won't be just emotional pain. It will be spiritual disorientation. Because your loyalty runs to the bone. You give all of you, and when that's broken, it makes you question not just them, but you. The test is not to see if you can avoid betrayal. It's to see what you do with it. Will you become bitter, vengeful, shut down, or will you rise with sharper discernment, higher standards, and unshakable self-respect? The fourth is the void, the test where nothing happens. You pray, and nothing shifts. You fast and nothing breaks. You speak and no one listens. The world feels mute. Time feels endless. And this is the test that breaks most people. Because in the void, God isn't absent. He's watching. Watching what you'll do when you get no applause, no sign, no external validation. This is where He sees your true character. Not the version that shines on stage, but the one who bleeds in private and still doesn't quit. The fifth is power. You'll be handed it in strange ways. A following, a voice, influence. And then, God will watch how you use it. Do you forget who you were before the blessings came? Do you use your gifts to manipulate or to serve? Many fall here. Because power reveals what pain cannot. It brings out your shadow's hunger for control, for praise. But the true dark chosen ones, they use power like a scalpel, not a sword. Precise, controlled, focused not on domination but liberation. The sixth is confrontation with your own darkness. God will show you the parts of yourself you've denied. Your rage, your lust, your jealousy, your hunger to destroy. And you'll be horrified. You'll want to reject it. But the test is not to erase your darkness. It's to integrate it. To say, yes, I have this within me, but I choose to be conscious. Only the truly chosen can stare into the abyss of their own soul and not collapse. Most people spend their whole lives avoiding their shadow. You sit with it, learn from it, and rise with it behind you, no longer chasing you. And the seventh, perhaps the hardest, is surrender. After all the storms, after the silence, the betrayal, the false identities, the power, the inner war, God asks you to let go of needing to understand, of needing to be right, of needing to win. You're asked to walk forward not because it makes sense, but because you trust. That is the final shadow test, and most fail here because they're tired. They want comfort. But you, if you are who I think you are, you'll keep walking anyway, because you were never doing this for the applause. You were doing it for something eternal. Now ask yourself something dangerous. What if everything you thought was breaking you was actually building you for a throne no one else could sit on? What if you were never being punished but prepared? You've passed more tests than you realize, but the next stage is even deeper. The invisible crown, how shadow-tested souls inherit authority without needing permission. There's a moment in every dark chosen one's path when they realize something quietly world-shattering. No one is coming to validate them. No council of elders, no grand announcement, no recognition from the very systems they once thought would one day see their value. And that moment, as painful as it feels, is one of the most sacred pivots in a chosen one's evolution, because it's the moment you stop seeking permission and begin to embody authority. Not the kind handed to you, not the kind granted by titles or applause, the kind that rises up from the ashes of every shadow test you survived. You wear an invisible crown, and only those who have walked through fire can see it. Authority doesn't come to you because you declare it. It doesn't land because you read enough, prayed enough, posted enough. It arrives in your bones after you've lost everything that made you perform. It arrives in your stillness after you've been silenced. And when it does, something ancient awakens. You stop proving and start moving. You stop explaining your calling and start executing it in silence, with the kind of weight that doesn't need noise to shift reality. The ones who still need recognition don't understand this yet, but you do, because the invisible crown isn't decorative, it's functional, it's spiritual gravity. There are no medals for this path, no spiritual blue check marks. You could be sitting in a small apartment with a cracked phone and a broken past, and still hold more power in your auric field than 1,000 influencers screaming online. Because your crown isn't for show, it's for go. It activates when you walk in truth without needing the room to bow to you. It sharpens when you speak not to be liked, but to shift something inside someone that cannot ever be reversed. That's authority. That's the mark of a soul that didn't just survive the shadows, they learned to sit in them like a throne. Do you want to know how you know your crown is real? You're no longer triggered when people don't believe in you. You're no longer shaken when they underestimate you. In fact, you prefer it. You've stopped playing the external game. You've moved beyond needing approval to function. You operate on divine timing time. And people feel it. Even if they don't understand it, they feel it. Some will be drawn to you for reasons they can't name. Others will hate you without knowing why. It's not personal. It's energetic. Your presence confronts every lie they still believe about themselves. That's why the crown is invisible. Because if it were visible, the wrong people would try to wear it. But only the shadow-tested know how heavy it really is. You carry memories no one saw, battles no one celebrated, nights when you begged God to take the calling away and he stayed silent. But you got up anyway. And that's when it fused to your soul. The crown didn't appear in your success. It appeared in your continuance. Every time you kept going when logic said stop. Every time you held someone else's pain while holding your own. Every time you chose alignment over applause. So now what? Now that you've inherited it, what do you do with it? You protect it. Not by hiding, but by refining. You stop throwing your wisdom where it's not received. You stop explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. You start speaking in codes for those who have ears to hear. You start acting like a king or queen without needing the castle. Because you realize your authority isn't tied to a place. It's portable. It travels with you, radiates through you, and rearranges environments the moment you step in. You'll notice something else. People will start confessing things to you without knowing why. They'll call you in crisis. They'll say, "I don't know why I'm telling you this," and you'll just nod. Because your field carries weight. You're not just a person anymore. You're a frequency, and your shadow tests were the tuning forks. You're no longer echoing the noise of the world. You're broadcasting something else entirely. You may still feel like you're waiting for your big break, for your platform, for your tribe. But I want to tell you something that few will dare say. You already are the thing you're waiting for. You've already been crowned. Now the world is just catching up. The throne isn't somewhere you're going. It's something you're building beneath your feet every day you choose truth in the face of fear. And when you finally accept that, when you stop looking up and start looking within, that's when the next dimension opens. You stop being the one looking for miracles and start becoming one for others. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you finally stopped waiting to be acknowledged and started walking as if your authority was already undeniable? What if that invisible crown wasn't a metaphor, but a spiritual law, and the only person who needs to recognize it now is you? Because once you do, the world around you is forced to shift, and the tests, they become tools. The pain, it becomes prophecy. The silence, it becomes strategy. And you become what God knew you were long before the first shadow ever touched you. Dark power, divine precision, how shadow walkers move reality without forcing it. There comes a moment in the journey of a true dark chosen one when you realize you don't need to force anymore. You don't need to scream to be heard, push to be seen, or chase anything to prove your worth. That's when your power transforms. It becomes quiet, refined, focused like a blade, not scattered like sparks. That's the essence of divine precision. You've spent so long wrestling shadows, yours and others, that you've become a master of energy itself. You can feel shifts before they happen. You sense betrayal before the words are spoken. You know when to speak and when silence will slice deeper than any sentence. And you stop reacting to life. You start bending it not through manipulation, but through alignment. The truth is, dark chosen ones don't move like others because we're not here to play by their rules. We were trained by silence, initiated by betrayal, sculpted by pain. While others were being praised for being agreeable, we were being broken so our soul could become unshakable. And now that you've inherited your authority, The next level is learning how to move energy without using force. You are no longer just surviving shadow tests. You are now wielding their aftermath as sacred tools. You don't scream spells, you embody them. You don't manifest through desperation, you command through calibration. There's a power that comes from having nothing to prove, from having walked through hell and realized that fire doesn't burn a soul that has nothing left to hide. You've faced your own ego. You've confronted your rage, your jealousy, your guilt, your apathy. You've sat with them, not as enemies, but as teachers. And through that, you've earned a skill few ever develop: emotional alchemy. You don't suppress, you transmute. You turn grief into gold, pressure into purpose, confusion into clarity. And you do it with surgical stillness. That's why you're so underestimated. Because the world only respects volume, but the universe obeys frequency. You don't have to argue anymore. You don't have to over-explain why you feel what you feel. You know, that inner knowing sharpened through every test, every delay, every disappointment is now your compass. And it's never wrong. This is the divine precision most people crave but never earn. They want magic but aren't willing to die for truth. You've done that multiple times. And now your discernment cuts through illusions like a blade. You don't follow signs. You are the sign. And now you start to understand a terrifying responsibility. You move reality by how you move yourself. One small decision from a soul like you carries massive ripple effects. Why? Because you are energetically weighted. You're not light. You're dense with spiritual gravity. That's why your presence makes people shift even if you're silent. That's why people confess things around you. Why some avoid you entirely. Because when a dark chosen one walks into a room fully conscious of their power, everything around them has to rearrange. This is why we're trained so brutally. Because the cost of untrained power is destruction. If you had been given your influence before your soul had been tested, you would have hurt people. Maybe even yourself. That's why the delays. That's why the isolation. Not because you were being punished, but because you were being protected from premature influence. And now you've been cleared, not in front of a crowd, in the dark, quietly. But your field has changed. You're not just on the path, you are the path. So what does this look like in the real world? It looks like saying no when it would have been easier to people please. It looks like walking away from attention that feeds your ego but starves your soul. It looks like waiting with power instead of chasing with panic. That's divine precision. You move when God says move, not when fear shouts. And when you act, things move. Emails arrive. People call. Doors swing open without you knocking. You no longer chase alignment. You embody it, and alignment chases you. There's a stillness that terrifies the world. A power that doesn't flex but commands. That's what you carry now. But it must be handled with sacred care. Because now you're not just influencing others, you're anchoring realms. You're a carrier of spiritual codes that trigger awakenings in others, not by preaching, by being, by how you breathe, by how you stand, by how you choose. Let me ask you something impossible. If you knew that every energetic choice you made would shape not just your life, but the energetic fabric of the people around you, would you live the same way? Would you keep ignoring the whisper to rest, to say no, to release that pattern? Or would you sharpen your choices like arrows and fire only when guided by divine clarity? You don't need to move fast anymore. You need to move correctly, because now you're not walking just for you. You're walking for those watching you silently, hoping, praying that someone like them can survive the darkness and still rise with light in their eyes. You are that proof. but it's not through what you say, it's through the precision with which you live. The final trial: why God hides your greatness until you're ready to carry legacy, not ego. You've been walking with weight no one could see, carrying callings too heavy for the average soul, feeling visions, messages, truths that came to you before you even had language to express them. And for a long time, it felt cruel, this silence from God, this invisibility cloak you couldn't take off. You saw others rise. You watched people with half your depth being celebrated. You stayed quiet while shallower voices echoed louder. And part of you wondered, why would God give me all this and then hide me? The answer is terrifying in its beauty, because your greatness was never meant to serve your ego. It was meant to serve a legacy. Ego wants applause. Legacy wants impact. Ego wants stage lights. Legacy moves in eternal light. And so God waits. He waits until you've outgrown the need to be seen before he allows others to truly see you. He waits until your gift is no longer a tool of self-glorification, but a sword of purpose. That's why it's been delayed. That's why he didn't release the fullness of your influence when you first asked. Because he knew what was coming and he trusted you enough to wait until you were ready. This is the final trial for dark chosen ones. Not shadow, not isolation, not betrayal, but success. Because once you've crossed through pain, silence, and fire, once you've activated your power and refined your frequency, there comes a moment when the world finally starts to open. But here's the twist. That opening is another test. Will you forget who you are now that the light finally shines on you? Will you start performing? Will you soften your edge just to be accepted? Or will you stay rooted, invisible crown intact, legacy over ego? If you are truly chosen, you'll notice something sacred. When God begins to reveal your greatness to others, you no longer need it. And that's the proof you're ready. When the very recognition you used to crave finally arrives, and you can look at it calmly, not with hunger, but with reverence, you've passed the last gate. Now, your influence is safe. Now, your voice can be trusted. Now, your presence won't just echo, it will plant something immortal. This is why God hides his rarest warriors. Because if the world had seen you too early, they would have tried to shape you, label you, brand you. You would have been tempted to play the role they offered instead of living the truth you are. But instead, he put you in the wilderness, where no one clapped, where your own mind turned on you, where the only voice left was his. And in that silence, something rare was born: self-possession. Not arrogance, not rebellion, just a deep, grounded knowing, I don't need to be chosen by man. I was already chosen by God. And now you're standing at the edge. You're no longer just surviving the tests. You're being asked to steward what they gave you. Your darkness didn't disqualify you. It equipped you. Your silence didn't make you irrelevant. It made you pure. Your betrayals didn't ruin your spirit. They refined it. And now, when people come to you, they won't just be seeking your knowledge. They'll be seeking your presence. Because your life will feel like a key, not just a story, but an unlock. So I leave you with this final reflection. What if your entire life has been the slow, divine construction of a vessel so sacred, it had to be hidden until it could hold the weight of eternity without leaking ego? What if this was never about proving your greatness, but preparing to give it away? You're not waiting anymore. You've already become. Now walk not to be seen, but to build something that will outlive you.